She didn't cry. Not when the email came in without a greeting, not when the line, "I don't need a reason," landed like a slap across her decade of loyalty. But something cracked, just enough for her to hit upload portfolio on the HR platform. By sunset, the silence was hers. By midnight, the market answered. The office lights hummed with their usual fluorescent indifference. Maya sat still, her hands hovering over her keyboard, the HR platform tab glowing quietly behind her inbox. One unread message, no subject, no salutation, just 8 words. I don't need a reason, no signature either, though she didn't need one. The CEO had always communicated with precision, often with too many words rather than too few. But this wasn't ambiguity. This was erasure. 2 weeks ago, she had submitted a private memo, a suggestion to recalibrate strategy on a major account, one that had hemorrhaged time and trust. She hadn't CC'd half the board. She hadn't made noise. Just quiet, senior-level concern. Strategic foresight. The kind expected of someone who'd carried the firm through 2 mergers and a crisis pivot. The kind that used to get her pulled into war rooms and late-night wine meetings. Not this. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. A part of her wanted to reply. To what exactly? Another wanted to call HR, not to report him, but to ask if maybe this was a mistake. But something else inside her, older, exhausted, sharpened, overruled both. Instead, she clicked on the HR platform tab. Her portfolio had sat there for months, half done. A living document she occasionally tinkered with but never fully updated. After all, who had the time between prepping for the firm's next conference appearance and managing 5 direct reports? But now, her cursor moved with eerie ease. She updated her title, streamlined the KP is, scrubbed the passive verbs, uploaded a new headshot, the one taken at last year's industry summit, where she'd moderated a panel in front of 500 people. It felt like setting fire to damp wood, slow at first, then suddenly warm. The office behind her remained frozen in its after-lunch lull. The low drone of a Zoom call from the next cubicle, the faint clatter of someone rage typing in Slack, and the smell of burnt coffee from the communal kitchen. Maya glanced once at her inbox, still just the one line. She closed the tab. By 3:52 p.m., her portfolio was live. By 4:26, her LinkedIn inbox pinged. By 5:07, a recruiter she vaguely remembered from a strategy event in Austin messaged her. "Can we talk tonight? Something just opened up. Confidential, but big." By 6:15, she had to use a spreadsheet to track the messages, each one more specific. Senior strategy roles, regional leadership, base salaries starting at $290,000, not including stock. And all of it, without a single cover letter. Just her name, her record, her story, told by results. She hadn't changed jobs in nearly 9 years. But now, the market spoke back, and it did not ask for a reason. Some offers come quietly, some arrive like war drums. But the best ones? They come when you no longer ask for them. By morning, the HR platform had tallied 94 views, 94 sets of eyes on a woman whose name hadn't trended on internal Slack channels since the annual awards. The same ones where the CEO had once praised her instincts that could read between data lines. Now, the same man had typed her out of the company in a single, subjectless sentence. She refreshed the dashboard. One view stood out. Someone from a competitor firm she used to admire, back when admiration still fit in the workday. Her chest fluttered, then steadied. She didn't need nostalgia now. She needed alignment. Her calendar blinked with new invites, all neatly titled Intro Chat, Strategic Director. The time slots were early, 7:15 a.m., 8:10, 9:30, East Coast, West Coast, and Europe. She brewed her coffee with a calm she hadn't felt in years. The kind that came from knowing she didn't need to win anymore. She simply needed to walk in as herself. The first call began with pleasantries, then unexpectedly. "We've followed your work since the lateral integration project." That was sharp. No performative small talk, no testing traps, just clarity. The next recruiter was more direct. "We're building something that needs conviction, not consensus. You seem allergic to mediocrity, and we like that." That sentence clung to her ribs like heat. By lunch, the offers started formalizing. One company sent a PDF before the call ended. Another asked if they could fast-track to final interviews with the board next week. But the one that stayed with her was an unexpected ping from a startup founder at 10:48 a.m. "Noticed your exit. No reason needed. Want to architect something instead?" Her breath caught. That word, architect, not manage, not coordinate, not support, but build. 2 hours later, her inbox chimed again. Another offer, this time $340,000 base, flexible remote, signing bonus, and the final line. "No references required. Your work is your reference." She leaned back in her chair. Her Zoom was still open in another tab. Ironically, a recurring internal sync she no longer attended, but hadn't bothered to cancel. A reminder of how routines outlive their relevance. She hovered over it, then clicked, "Leave meeting, permanently." When the world sees your worth before your boss does, it's not loyalty, it's latency. She didn't chase validation. It found her. Share this with someone who forgot how powerful they are. The hallway outside her apartment still smelled like burnt toast and someone else's perfume. Familiar, oddly grounding. Maya closed the door behind her with a soft click, carrying nothing but her laptop and a folder with printed copies of the offers. Not because she needed them, but because touching paper made it real. She'd booked a co-working space downtown, neutral territory, no firm logos on the walls. Just quiet corners, natural light, and strangers too focused on their own slides to ask why she looked both sharp and slightly undone. She didn't wear her usual navy power blazer. Today, it was a soft gray sweater and tailored trousers. Calm authority. Like someone who didn't need to shout to be heard. Offer number 1 was tempting, a well-established consulting giant with global presence and airtight budgets. The base was strong, the path to partner clearer than most, but it came with the same kind of silence she had just left. Polished, performative, perfectly distant. Offer number 2 hit differently, a late-stage startup with Series D funding seeking a strategic architect to help scale their presence in Latin America. The founder's email still sat open on her screen. "We're not just hiring you to fit a role. We're rewriting the role around you." She hadn't read a sentence like that since her early 30s, before budgets got tight and brilliance got buried under Excel templates and KPIs she hadn't authored. Offer number 3 came with perks, sign-on bonus, wellness stipend, stock options. It was smart, generous, polite, but safe, too safe. She looked out the window. Below, the city moved in late afternoon rhythms, couriers on e-bikes, someone pacing on a call, teenagers filming dance videos near a mural that read, "You're not stuck, you're just early." That line stayed with her. She opened her notebook and wrote down just one question. Where would I be proud to give my energy? Not where she'd be rewarded, not where she'd be praised, but where her time would be currency, not just cost. Her phone buzzed, a message from her old team. "Are you okay?" Word spreading. She smiled. She hadn't announced anything. The platforms did. Visibility, when earned, speaks louder than declarations. She replied, Better than okay, just not silent anymore. The elevator ride to her old office had always felt endless, slow, reflective, metallic. But this morning, she wasn't in it. Instead, she passed the building without looking up, turned the corner, and entered the cafe 2 blocks away. The one she used to sit in during her first year at the firm, back when she still wore ambition like a scent. Strong, noticeable, not always comfortable. She ordered the same drink she had back then. Black coffee, no room. Bitterness without apology. At the corner table, she opened her laptop and began drafting her goodbye letter. Not the dramatic kind. No spilled ink, no burned bridges. Just something honest. It started simple. After nearly a decade of building, it's time to build elsewhere. She didn't list her achievements. The numbers spoke for themselves. The acquisitions, the market entries, the projects that went from scribbles on whiteboards to quarterly headlines. Instead, she thanked the people who mattered. The HR coordinator who once flagged a bias in a performance review. Quietly, bravely. The intern who stayed late during a product crisis and asked the smartest question in the room. The colleague who always made space for nuance, even in meetings that had no time for it. She didn't mention the CEO. Some names don't need ink. Before hitting send, she paused. Not out of doubt, but ceremony. There's a difference. In another tab, her calendar showed the final confirmation. Offer number 2, accepted. The role of strategic architect, full autonomy, Latin American market leadership, a team she could build from scratch. No playbook, no backseat, no reason required. She clicked send. The inbox shifted. A moment later, a reply popped up from HR subject line. RE, resignation message. Understood? Best of luck. Effective immediately. She exhaled. It didn't sting. It confirmed. Outside, the city pulsed with winter light, unforgiving, bright, and deeply honest, like her next chapter. She folded the laptop shut, walked away without a backward glance. The first morning after didn't feel like freedom. It felt like disorientation. No Zoom alerts. No Slack explosions. No back-to-back meetings in which her name was always mispronounced until she became the one who stopped correcting it. There was no inbox war, no urgent deck to finalize, no 11:59 p.m. deadlines disguised as quick edits. There was just silence. She poured her coffee slower than usual, sat by the window, watched her neighborhood wake up in real time instead of through bus window reflections. For a moment, she feared the stillness meant she'd made a mistake. Then, her phone lit up. Not from an employer, from her future team. A group thread had started overnight. The new startup she'd accepted the role with. 3 people had already sent welcome messages. 1 even sent a playlist for big exits and even bigger entrances. The founder dropped a voice note. We don't do onboarding like corporates. We onboard stories. Tell us yours when you're ready. She let that sentence sit. It was the first time in years someone had asked about her without expecting a bullet point list. She opened her laptop, not out of pressure, but out of momentum. Inside her folders were slides she'd built, research she'd archived, blueprints no one had ever used. All those hours of unpaid innovation. Now, they had a place. Mid-scroll, she found a file named revolt.xlsx. It was a joke, sort of. A private spreadsheet she used to track ideas rejected without review. Now, it read like a strategic war chest. She smiled, uploaded it to her new work drive, retitled it Roots, because nothing she'd built was wasted, only buried. Now, it would grow. That afternoon, she got a calendar invite, vision workshop, Maya's brain unlocked, no PowerPoint deck required, just her. The workshop room wasn't a room at all. It was a rooftop, Sunlight, blank notebooks, no logo banners, no forced icebreakers, just a whiteboard leaning against a table and a team that looked like they'd actually read her file, not just her resume. Someone handed her a marker. However you want to start. Maya blinked. No pre-read, no slide deck, no 15-minute limit. She stepped forward. The breeze caught a strand of hair, and she tucked it back behind her ear. Then she wrote 2 words on the board. Strategic patience. Silence. Then curiosity. She turned around. That's what they called it when I stayed too long. When I didn't push back. When I watched middle managers take my frameworks, repackage them, and get credit. Strategic. Patience? A beat. But I was never patient. I was calculating. A few heads nodded. She kept going, describing the moments when she'd spoken up too soon, or not at all. The times she'd solved the problem before they admitted it existed. The years she was told to wait her turn, and the meetings where that turn never came. 2 hours passed like 30 minutes. They asked questions, not what she had done, but why. Not her failures, but her friction. Where did things resist her? What did she push against? It was a vocabulary she hadn't used in years, not outputs, but origins. By the end, someone from product looked at her and said, "You don't just have vision, you have post-traumatic clarity." It hit like poetry, and truth had a child. They stayed on the roof until the sun dipped. Someone ordered empanadas. Another connected a speaker. The playlist from the welcome thread played in the background. Low, persistent, warm. For the first time in her career, Maya didn't feel like an outsider with insights. She felt like an architect of culture. And no one had asked her for a reason. 3 weeks in, and her calendar looked nothing like before. There were still meetings, but not the suffocating, stacked kind that blurred together into one long, polite battle for relevance. These were shorter, sharper, rooms where she wasn't the only one asking why, or the only one willing to challenge a slide's 4th bullet point. One meeting started late because someone needed a walk to think. Another ended early because everyone agreed. This is enough for today. No one called it laziness. They called it trust. Maya had redefined strategy decks into what she called thought maps, flexible, human-first outlines that prioritized clarity over jargon. She'd once been told by a former exec, "If it's not in Excel, it's not real." Here, someone joked, "If it's not written like a story, we don't ship it." She kept noticing the difference, the quiet kind. No one stared through her during calls. No one cut her off mid-sentence to say, "Let's table that." And when she raised a red flag on a cross-market expansion timeline, no one made her prove it in triplicate. They listened, adjusted, moved. It felt disarming, almost suspicious, until she realized this was what it looked like when credibility wasn't treated like a prize you had to keep re-winning. The founder invited her to co-author the company's next strategic roadmap, not just review it. They handed her a blank page and asked, "What are we underestimating?" She'd never been asked that question. She wrote, "The cost of undervaluing intuition." And beside it, another line, "The ROI of exits." Because sometimes the best decisions aren't about where you go. They're about what you no longer tolerate and what you choose to build after that. One of the offers she had declined wrote back, not the recruiter, the actual VP. A short message, sharp in tone, but wrapped in polite vocabulary. "We'd appreciate insight on why you chose not to proceed, for future alignment." She read it twice, then a third time, future alignment, as if they hadn't sent her a templated offer with someone else's name in the subject line. as if they hadn't rushed her through 2 interviews with executives who never turned on their cameras. Maya let the email sit. In her old world, she would have agonized over the perfect reply. Balanced, measured, just enough truth not to offend, just enough diplomacy not to burn. But in this new rhythm of hers, she answered honestly and quickly. Your culture mirrored the environment I left, and I didn't leave to replicate it. No explanation, no apology, just clarity. An hour later, she received a quiet thank you. No defensiveness, just acknowledgement. That, in itself, was rare. That afternoon, during a team sync, she led a discussion on stakeholder narratives, how companies told stories to investors versus how they spoke to their own employees. She drew 2 columns on a shared doc. What we say externally, what we whisper internally. The contrast stunned even the founders. Someone asked, "Should we show this to the board?" She replied, "Only if we're ready to be the company we say we are." Silence, the good kind, followed. Later that night, she sat alone in her apartment with a glass of wine, not exhausted, not wired, but intact. She opened her journal and for the first time in months wrote one simple line. I am not explainable. I am evident. She walked into the panel without a title, not by accident, by design. The event was one of those hybrid strategy summits where industry veterans threw around buzzwords like synergy and resilience, while assistants timed coffee breaks to avoid the awkward networking lulls. Maya had been invited late, added as a special voice in the final speaker slot. No firm name next to hers, no fancy acronym, just Maya L., strategic architect. No one asked her what that meant, but by the time she finished speaking, they understood. She didn't present a deck, she told a sequence about silence dressed as loyalty, about rooms where she was heard but not believed, about an HR platform that became an accidental runway, and about walking away without a scream, only a statement. Some exits aren't noise, they're signals. The room didn't clap right away. They absorbed. Then, a standing ovation. Not loud, but lasting. Not because she had razzle-dazzle slides. Because they saw themselves, or the version of themselves still stuck drafting a resignation they weren't ready to send. Afterward, people lined up to speak to her. One whispered, "Your story made me realize I've stayed too long." Another said, "I didn't know you could leave without burning everything." She nodded. "You don't need to fight. You just need to finish." That night, a journalist DM'd her. "No one said what you said on that stage. Would you ever write about it?" She looked at the message for a moment, then replied, "I already am." Because this wasn't her ending. It was the architecture of something new. Maya woke up before sunrise, not out of anxiety but habit. Her body still held echoes of early calls, urgent decks, and last-minute pivots. But today, there was no rush, no pings, just a wide sky turning gold over the city she'd once only seen through boardroom windows. She stepped onto her balcony with a notebook, not for planning, for remembering. She wrote down the names of every person who had ever said not yet, when she'd offered more. Every "let's circle back" that never circled. Every deck she'd ghostwritten but never owned. Then she turned the page and started listing the people who saw her, the team who now asked, "What do you feel about this strategy?" The ones who said, "Let's not scale until it makes sense." The ones who made room without her having to ask. In between the 2 lists sat the truth. She hadn't just changed jobs, she had changed direction, not from something, but toward herself. At 9 a.m. sharp, her phone buzzed. It was a calendar alert she forgot to cancel. Weekly sync with CEO. She stared at it, smiled, and hit delete. Later that day, she hosted her first internal failure forum, a monthly space where the team shared not what went wrong, but what went real. The truths no one puts in retros. She went first. Told the story of how she once stayed 6 extra months at her old job to finish a deliverable, only to see it shelved. I thought I was staying to prove I was committed, she said. But I was just delaying the proof that I deserved better. The room went quiet. Then nods. Then stories. The forum ended with one question written on the whiteboard. What are you postponing that would set you free? Maya didn't need to answer. She already had.